TV1 රැස්වීදෙන ජීවිතේ.
Face the Nation, joining you after some time on the Face Nation set. A lot of politically interesting things happening even at this late hour. We are now aware of the date the general elections will be held. We are aware of the date the nominations will be called. We are going to talk to four interesting people today regarding the upcoming general elections, the updates that we have seen today in terms of the Jatika Samagi Jana Balavegya. A lot of things to talk about, so without further ado, let me introduce our guests for this evening. Mr. Chris Balthasar, Municipal Councillor, Debala, Mount Lavinia, representing the Sri Lanka Pujana Peramuna. Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, Executive Director of the People's Action for Free and Fair Election, or PAFL as you know it. Thank you so for being here. Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, National Coordinator, Centre for Monitoring Election Violence, or CMEV. And of course, Mr. Rasika Jayakodi, Political Analyst attached to the United National Party or the Jatika Samagi Jana?
Jatika Samagi.
All right. We have four eminent personalities here and we are going to talk to them about the current updates that we are seeing in the political arena. A lot of things to talk about. We also have Mr. Shehan Ranatunga and John Fernando here with us to raise questions from these four individuals here in the studio. So let me start off with you, John. You can raise questions. We have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Chaturanga. As you mentioned, a very short while ago, Parliament was dissolved and
it's being dissolved at midnight tonight.
At midnight tonight, and the date was announced 25th of April. So my question is first directed to you, Mr. Chris. We saw when the government was appointed after the presidential election, the government actually went on to a good start. There was tax reductions and much appreciation from the general public due to certain actions taken by the president himself. So it's been 3 months, over 3 months after this government came into power. And when the government came into power, we saw how certain promises were made in front of the general public, like justice to major financial frauds which were conducted against the people's money, and then justice against deal politics, which was done so far in the political arena, and other promises such as providing jobs or providing university entrance, and the promises towards the public generally or farmers of the country as well. With time, if I say that these promises or the responsibility of the government diminished over time, will you agree with me? Because, Chris, at the moment, we should understand that the general public does not expect an active government. At the moment, the general public expects a proactive government. So will you agree if I say that these promises diminished over time? With such a situation, how can you face a successful general election?
First of all, thank you for having me on your show tonight. John, I would have to disagree with you saying it diminishing over time, because see, soon after the November elections, the primary objective of His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the current Prime Minister is to go in for election. We did not want to go into a government with a minority ruling. So the objective of ours was to go in for election. But then, of course, the opposition now opposed it in certain avenues. And thereon, we were compelled to take over the governance of the country. Still for all, as you said, there have been promises that were made, promises that have been delivered within a short span of time. Now, with the tax reductions, we saw, I'll give you a few examples of how much of an impact it has made. We saw the VAT reductions. So with the VAT reductions coming into consideration, we saw like the overall economic structure, the amount of savings that people have been able to make. Over and that, we have the pay tax reduction, which has given the people, like people who work in the government and also the corporate sector, a large, it's like a salary increment for them. Okay. Over and above that, we have houses being built already. In more than 14,000 houses being built in each Gram Sevaka ward. 100,000 jobs for for youth and for different aspects of people, as well as 50,000 employment opportunities coming in to university people who have qualified university standards. So all this within a very short span of time. And also, you take, we went through an era where SMEs were run down. Severely, they crashed. And within a very short span of time, there's an amnesty period given for them to come back with their loan schemes, restructuring their loans. So all these things, now we can see that the SMEs, the industrial sector, and the labor are highly proactive, as opposed to before where they were totally demoralized. So all this within a span of 3 months, I think, is a great achievement, as opposed to having, by saying that it's deteriorating gradually. It's only captivating more day by day.
Chris, let me ask you a question then. Now you say what has been reduced economically. You focused on the economy aspect to the question that John raised. Now, the VAT reduction, the value that was estimated the country lost is about 580 billion, if I'm not mistaken. That was the value that was decided. Okay, let's go beyond that. Let's say that this is beneficial to the country. You said that the SME sector is receiving advantages through the economic benefits that have been provided. Are you basing that on research that you have been, the boom in the SME sector, are you basing it on evidence, or are you saying what you've heard?
Based on evidence. On
what evidence?
Okay, let me go back to a fact that the leader of the opposition mentioned a few weeks back about this 580 billion tax loss. Now tell me, what country has developed because of taxation? There's no country in this world that has developed because of taxation. Okay? So by reducing 580 billion, or we say by 500 billion, okay, you take the population of 25 million people, that means each citizen has been given a tax return of 20,000 rupees to their hand.
Then the argument that your government, the government that is in power, brought up to say that the loans need to be paid, and the argument that the former government brought in saying that the Mahinda Rajapaksa era loans have to be paid, the whole reason why people are taxed, the taxation policies has its own needs and wants, but why the people are taxed now is to get that money and pay the debt that we owe. So you're saying that's not a problem now. Is that what you're saying?
A source of revenue for a government is not only taxation.
Agreed,
okay.
100%.
Now, within the past time, we saw lots of corruption, bribery, going into colossal amounts of billions.
Right.
But now we don't need to have taxes if we have proper governance. If we don't have a corrupt system. So what His Excellency the President and the current government are doing is they have cut down on corruption. There's no bribery. There is no government wastage.
Right.
Now, what the previous government were doing all these years was they were taking tax from the people, and at the time we said it's not coming to the people. Where is this money? What they were doing was they were getting it more onto themselves, and they enjoy the luxuries of purchasing luxury vehicles. Now we saw all the luxury vehicles, how it came out. So they were only thinking about themselves, their cabinet, their ministers, and them spending for themselves.
Sure.
Whereas now it has changed and it has gone to the people, and the people are benefiting from it.
John?
I would like to pose my first question to Mr. Jayakodi. You said that you're representing the Jatika Janabala Vegya.
I'm not representing, but I'm affiliated with, because the party was just formed this morning.
The Samagi Jalabagagi, if I may correct myself.
Samagi Jana Balagagi.
That's right. My first question is actually, there's a statement that was made by Hirunika Premachandra, who said that those who are at Sirikota are backing the Prime Minister, Mahinda Rajapaksa. Do you agree with this statement?
It's like this, Shehan, you need to, when it comes to a political party actually, any political party actually exists among the people. People, I mean, who are the supporters of the party. Without the support of the public, without the support of grassroots members, party headquarters becomes a mere building. The party name becomes a mere name board. Party constitution becomes a mere document. So the public support is the primary factor for any political party, and that's the issue surrounding the UNP at the moment. I mean, if you saw the launch of the Samagi Jana Balavegi this morning, about 80% of the parliamentary group were present at the launching ceremony. The large majority of electorate organizers, the large majority of former local government, provincial council members were there. So it's very clear where the public support lies.
Has the United National Party become irrelevant? Andru Kumar Dissanayake himself said that the UNP should no longer even be a political force because there's been infighting for over 20 years. What do you think about this?
It's like this, Shihan. People join political parties to secure power. That's the fundamental objective of any political party of any at any level. Otherwise, if you're interested in social work, you can join various rural development committees, welfare societies, and all that. You become members, you become activists of political parties with the objective of achieving power one day at some point. So the problem with the UNP right now, some people in the UNP right now, is that the people feel that they are not geared towards achieving power, securing power, and they are merely working to further their own agendas. They are trying to consolidate their bases. So that's the issue with some people in the UNP at the moment, and that's why there's an imminent issue in the party.
Mr. Etiaracha, I want to ask a question from you as well. Now, of course, when the election is close, everyone pays their attention to movements such as yours and, of course, Mr. Gajanayaka's. Everyone talks about this campaign financing laws and declaration of assets, matters like that, to have a more transparent system when it comes to selecting the representatives of the people. You all went and met with the current Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa as the March 12th movement as well. Now, there is a lot of talk towards going into these avenues of clean politicians, transparent politicians. Where are we now? We saw an election last year during the end. We saw the 2015 election and the local government election in between as well. Are we moving forward? Are we stagnated? What's happening?
Well, I think this is the journey. I mean, this corrupted politics and the politicians are in the system the decades. So we can't change the existing system within a very short period. Now we, as a March 12 movement, we established only on 2015. I think so far, and Manjula and myself, both of us are in the same page. Now the last 5 years, we have achieved certain extent. Yeah. But the main questions about the campaign finance regulation, that actually, if you talk about the clean politics or clean politicians, this is the really important area, because if there is no such a law, whoever has a financial power, so they can spend millions of millions for their campaigning. So end of the day, once you get elected, your first priority will be how you are going to take it back. How you earning the amount which you spend. Or maybe your supporters or your friend, maybe your colleagues, whoever contribute, not maybe your own money, but then you have to allow them to get back the money. So this is really direct to the corrupt politicians, this campaign finance law.
Yeah.
So we, I think in 2000, somewhere around 2016, we were able to draft something. The CMEB, PAFRL, even including the elections commissions, we had a number of consultations across the country. We have drafted some regulation. We hand over to the former president. We had given all the ministers and the parliamentarians, but unfortunately, they were not taken serious.
Right.
And then later, the elections commission also drafted one. It went up to the cabinet. It went up to the attorney's department, but again, it's held up now. I think the corrupt politician doesn't want to bring such a law. I will tell you one example. Even the last local elections in Mondragala district, one candidate spent around 40 million rupees for a small geographical area, around 500, 600 families. So millions of money. So this is not the actually democracy.
Yeah.
There is no connections, voters and the elected representative. This is a business. You pay something prior to the elections,
Yeah.
and you will buy the votes. This is vote buying. So it is happening here now. Until we bring such a law,
Yeah.
it will take place even the coming elections.
Mr. Gajanayaka, now, as the Center for Monitoring Election Violence, specifically, last election also we saw, not as much, but we saw several incidents, and you were also on the media talking about it. And especially taking a leaf from what Mr. Etiarati said, the situation seems to be stagnated even as we speak. Now, a lot of people are paying attention to this, such as yourself, the PAFRL, Transparency International. A lot of people are talking about this, but is the push not enough? What is stopping? As Mr. Etiarati claims, is it just the politicians who are corrupt who's stopping it, or is there no drive? What is happening?
Yeah, actually, that the thing is that first of all, actually, we are heading to another elections. But I should mention here, as an election observer in the country, that we are heading to another election, but we have totally forgotten another important elections. According to the Sri Lankan law, actually, we have to conduct provincial council elections.
Yeah.
But regimes are giving elections what they want. But according to the law, actually, we are so far behind to conduct provincial council elections here. Answering your questions, actually, that regarding elections, actually, there should be a citizen power and citizen front towards accurate election process in the country. But we can't see such a citizen battle, citizen power towards a clean, establish a clean politics in the country. Then what I should say regarding elections, actually, let me to highlight what famous George Bernard Shaw said at the beginning, actually. But he said, actually, an election is a moral horror, as bad as a battle except for the blood, a mud bath for every soul concerned in it. So we are heading to another elections. Then what George Bernard Shaw is telling is maybe true in these elections also. But you know that there's, let me to think in another angle, that what to add what Mr. Rohan Etiarati said. When we start March 12 movement in 2015, but actually no one concerned on clean politics in the country.
Yeah.
But there are some political movement. Let's say Viatmaga, Elia, Alutin Seyak, New 100 Faces, like that, actually. But we would like to think, as a result of March 12 movement, such persons are coming out and actually they are promoting clean politics. I don't know, actually, we can't assure that they are following those March 12 criteria, actually, basically 8 criteria introduced by March 12 movement. But actually that such individuals and political movements are coming forward because of we concerned that actually the introduction with March 12 movement 2015.
Thank you, Mr. Gajanayaka. With that, I think we are going into a short commercial break. When we come back, we are going to hear more from these 4 gentlemen. We are going to talk about their respective parties that they are affiliated to. We are going to have a slight problem with Rasika, of course, but we'll deal with it when we come back after this short commercial break.
Brainbusters with Slip Season 2.
27 schools across the island, 27 selected students testing their brains to win the ultimate championship, the Brainbusters with Slit Season 2.
Brainbusters with Slit, Saturday at 6:30 p.m.
Hello?
Yeah, what?
Babe, I'm so sorry.
Whatever it is, I don't want to hear it.
Babe, please. I couldn't answer your call because I was watching Sunrise Melodies. You know how it makes me feel.
Sunrise Melodies, සතියේ සෑම දිනකම උදෑසන 5ට.
ප්‍රභායි සතිය දින පහේම හවස 5ට.
This is Newsline Live. Watch us for all the action. We ask all the questions that you want answers to.
Top Hits සතියේ දින 5ම දහවල් 12:45ට.
Welcome back to the show. You are watching Face the Nation. Before we went into the break, our journalists grilled the four gentlemen we have in the studio regarding various topics. Now we want to give them time to speak, but I'm also going to lay out a sort of a framework so that we can stick to the topic that we have. You have 3 minutes each, gentlemen, and I'm going to start with Mr. Jayakodi on this side. Mr. Jayakodi, today is an important day for the political movement that you are affiliated to. We saw the inaugural meeting happening in a grand scale. We saw a lot of parliamentarians who are of the UNF present at this location as well. Now, interestingly, until late last night, everyone who's following the political scene in the country wasn't aware of whether you all are contesting from the Alia, the elephant, the heart, or something else. And even right now, we are not aware of what you all are contesting under. What are you all contesting under?
I think that is still being discussed. Now, what politics is all about bargaining power, Chaturanga.
Yeah.
So today, Jatika Samagi Jana Balawege, I'm still not familiar with the name because it's a new new name in the political arena. So Samagi Jana Balawege today clearly demonstrated its power. We have the large majority of the UNF parliamentary group. We have the support of almost all the political parties affiliated with the UNF, all the political parties, including Mr. Digambaran's party, Mr. Mano Ganeshan's party, Mr. Partli Champikaranavaka's party, and we have the support of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, and we have the support of the ACMC, Mr. Rishad Baduddin's party. So all the parties affiliated with the UNF are now with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. So it's very clear that the UNP can't, I mean the majority of the UNP machinery is currently with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. And Samagi Jana Balawegaya was formed with the concurrence of the UNP Working Committee.
Yes.
The UNP Working Committee actually approved a proposal to contest the election under Samagi Jana Balawegaya, led by Mr. Sajith Premadasa. So there's no problem here. So right now, I think today's meeting, today's event sent a very clear message to the UNP that, you know, in the face of a split, it's going to cost a lot more on the UNP side, right? In that case, if they are to form a strong opposition at the, you know, after the upcoming parliamentary election, there's no way but to, you know, unite with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
So but what if I ask you a question like this, Mr. Jayakuri? Now, until the campaign financing laws come into effect, money plays a very important role in the party. What if I tell you that the people who are affiliated to the UNP, the former party of the current opposition leader or the party that he came up from, the people with the money are with Ranil Wickremesinghe? If I say that, do you agree? Because a lot of major financially able individuals are on that side, and we saw that last night as well at the working committee meeting, after the working committee meeting. If I say that the money is with Ranil, what do you say?
Not really, because that's the conventional politics that you're talking about. You know, it's all about, you know, dishing out money, distributing goods and all that, showing a lot of vehicles and, you know, having vehicle parades and things like that. But I think now people are moving away from that kind of conventional politics. People are sensitive about corruption and, you know, wastage and all that. You know, there are a lot of discussions thanks to various civil society movements. People like Mr. Gajanayak, Mr. Hettiarachchi, people are now informed. You know, they can't be hoodwinked by showing off your wealth. So it's all about smart politics, engaging in politics in a smart way, being transparent about where you get money from, being transparent about how you spend your money during the campaign. So I think with all that, there's a young team with Mr. Premadasa, and I think that will, you know, give some hope to the public about, you know, moving away from conventional politics.
Thank you, Mr. Jayakuri. We'll get back to that topic in a while. Thank you for respecting the 3-minute time allocation. Mr. Gajanayaka, question that has to be asked is the ability or the inability in this case of the politicians to declare their assets. Now, if I was contesting at this moment, I would not have any problems declaring my assets because, you know, I am me. But the politicians who are in the sphere of public representation at the moment, 10 odd politicians have come forward and declared their assets. How important is that asset declaration, and how important is it for the general public to know that the person that we are electing is maybe having, this is the level of assets that he or she has? Is that important to the public?
Yeah, definitely, actually, that though we are heading to another elections, actually, that we should say that there are some unresolved pending issues related to this electoral process. One of major issue is that there's no campaign finance regulation law, as well as we are dealing with most of outdated laws at the moment, and also we have unable to control social media and media during election time period. Actually, this is it is uncontrollable. Another striking point is that actually the asset and declarations, there are two folds, I should say. The one thing is actually that asset and declaration law also actually it is outdated. It has introduced in 1975. Actually, it has updated on 1988. But after that, actually, it is very traditional, and also it has not addressed currently most important current issues. I mean, what is the format? It is that the format is very, very difficult to fill up in even that form itself. It is one question. Other thing is actually that are we following such a decent political culture in this country? Not only politicians, actually, most of social movements have been decayed, like other political movements. Then I can't see that such a progress individuals or that like clean political culture established in the country. That is the main question. Then I should say that yes, it is important that March 12 movement actually did a leading role regarding this, and also actually Transparency International initiated this, that 10 individuals, MPs have declared.
Yes.
One of most striking point is that actually, though they have introduced that declared asset and declarations, are we respecting those 10 people? Actually, we should. But as a society, actually, we should be shame, because actually even we have not considered those 10 gentlemen in the country.
Right.
But they have taken progressive steps.
Yeah.
That is the one of reason. That the addressing your question is most important thing is that religious leaders, media, especially political leaders, should proactively work on this issue. But we can't say actually that we know academics and political leaders and also media talking on many issues, but are we respecting, are we appreciating those 10 individuals in the country? No, that is the main problem actually. We should create a background that once issued, once declared such a once did such a best practice in the ground, actually we should appreciate, but there's no such a culture. That is the main reason why they have failed.
Mr. Gajanayaka, I want to, with time quickly running out, I also want to ask you now, yes, there were 10 individuals who have, why isn't that number increasing? Like you saw a trend sort of when the first person, in fact, one of the politicians who declared the assets did it on our show here out of the 10. So why didn't that trend hold? Because I am sure, yes, as you say, if you say a majority of the politicians are corrupt, I will agree with that statement. But I'm sure there are a few more individuals who can actually come forward and make this asset declaration. Why did it not create a trend, in your opinion?
Yeah, before create a trend, actually, I should say that why they are not declaring those assets. Number one is, the most important thing is, they have to hide something. That is the main thing. It is no question, no doubt about that. Actually, they have to hide something. That's why they are not declaring, number one. That why we can't create something. That the number one thing, the first thing is actually we have to amend our existing laws. Actually, these existing laws, you know that when we are reading that those asset declaration, actually we can see they are asking many questions that not only that specific individuals, that many questions actually I don't think that it is most related to that questions that included into that asset and declarations actually. Now, first thing is we have to amend our existing laws. Second thing is actually that we have to create the appreciative culture that once declared something like that, actually we have to appreciate. Then other thing is actually we can create a space for that. Actually, in this evening also we discussed about that. Now, focusing this next upcoming election, parliamentary general elections, actually, we are going to have a big event in Colombo, inviting all candidates who are willing to declare those asset and declarations. We'll see, actually, we are so positive on that. We hope that politicians will come up with a good sign.
Thank you, Mr. Gajanayaka. I think the people will also be able to have a better or a clearer understanding in terms of the people who attend this conference as to whether they can decide and whether they can represent us in Parliament. So, Mr. Etiarachi, I will move on to you very quickly. Again, I want to take a leaf from there. We see that the President also has issued a directive yesterday not to refrain from using his portrait or drawings of him during the election season. Now, a topic that people talk about is, yes, there is this culture of no polythene usage during the election period, posters and banners. There is a way that it has to be done. The chairman of the election commission is very clear of how to do it. But the main argument is, if you catch someone doing that, the argument is, it was not me, my party supporters. That's the main argument that they raise, and we've seen it in terms of the complaints that you all receive. Shouldn't there be a mechanism where, you know, if someone does it, we are living in 2020. This is 2020 and not 1989 or 1980, or, you know, we are still addressing issues like it's the 1980s. Shouldn't there be a development in at least in these simple things where people, when questioned, say, it wasn't me, it was my party supporter?
I think that's what Mr. Manjula mentioned about the electoral reforms, and some of these laws are really established in many years ago. Now, the problem here is again all those changes has to come from the parliamentarians, legislatures, but they also very actively raise these issues only during the elections period. Even as an observer and the elections commissions, time to time we raise this issue, but unfortunately the ruling people, they are not serious about to change this existing elections law. But I think other than the law, we need to make a public demand. So if there is such a demand for clean politics, for ethical campaign, for polythene-free elections campaign, something like that, then the political party and the politicians will serious about it, whether we have a law or not. But unfortunately, in this country, there is no such a public demand. So that is why the politicians are play with the existing law. So this is the time for us as a citizens to think about it. Not only this ethical campaign, even all other demand. For example, now, as you said from the beginning, now the elections is going to take place, I mean the nomination is going to take place from 12th of March. So what is the point? If we have maybe we may have a pre-fair elections, we can't say 100%, but at least in certain level. If we are unable to bring the quality, capable people into the system, are we going to bring the same people in the coming parliament? So we need to make such a public demand. It's like demand and supply. I mean, it's always not only the politics, even in the economy, that is the basic. So in the electoral system, so people has to make that public demand. So that is why we as a martial movement, we are trying to educate the voters in the ground level, how we are going to make that public demand for electoral reform, for clean politics, for selections of candidate, and even when you select your representative during elections period, how you are going to assess your candidate. So those things need to be addressed. So this is the perfect time for us, because as you said that the president also has given a green light, because he is trying to behave in a good manner. He is trying to show us a different view. So we need to capture that, whatever the party we are, whatever the party the people are supporting. But we need, this is the best time for people to think about, because we are going to select our representative for next 5 years. But we need to serious that these people within next 5 years, whatever their decisions will affect for next 50 years maybe, or maybe 100 years. So if we are failed to select a proper candidate, either political party side or a people's choice, so we will lose. We will have a pre-fair elections maybe, but I think it's a useless exercise if we are not capable enough to pressurize the political party.
Thank you, Mr. Hettiarachchi, and let's quickly move on to Mr. Balsa. Chris, interestingly, you guys are in power right now, and a lot of promises were made in the run-up to the election. Yes, some are not achievable in 100 plus days, understood. But those promises, there are signs of it moving the other way, especially things like the MCC. Now, yes, the government has given a clear decision saying we are not signing the MCC. But the added clause or the word that they are using is we are not signing the current MCC agreement or the draft of the current MCC. So are you all, sort of using these words and, twisting the words here and there and trying to sort of delay this process? Especially why I'm asking you this is, I have been privy to the Sinhalese version of this program, the Satana program on Sirasa TV, and the main argument that was brought in is we are not signing the MCC agreement. And one parliamentarian went up to say that we are not signing it, and because we cannot tell the United States that we are not signing it, we have appointed a committee to tell them that. That was the idea. So why are you trying to sort of delay these processes till the election is over? You're trying to take this slow journey towards the election. Is that what's happening? Wordplay and delaying tactics, something the former Prime Minister was good at, but is that what's happening?
Wordplay and delaying tactics is, sorry. See, on the last show that I was with you all, a similar question popped up, whether we are going to sign the MCC. And I said, most definitely, by the looks of it, because as a local government councillor,
I understand.
Representing a certain demographic area of the country, I can't speak out for what's happening in Parliament and what's happening within the Cabinet and the decisions that are made. Nonetheless, I said, from what I believe and what I have heard, we won't be signing it.
Sure.
Then the next question hopped on to corruption allegations, people who this thing. Question came in about Udayanga Veeratunga. And I said, most definitely we will arrest him. Action was taken. So these questions that have been coming up gradually, like I'm talking within a span of maybe a month or a month and a half, there are answers coming. You know, there are commissions that have come up, there are gradual things, there are new movement, there's decisions, there's policies that are taken place. So as for the MCC being signed, as I said, as a local government member, I may not have the actual absolute right to comment on it, but I believe that we will not sign it.
Right. The current one though?
MCC agreement as it is.
Okay. So Chris, since that is your answer to that question, I'm sure this question comes up in a lot of forums, the corruption angle as well. My question to you is not that complex, very simple. Are you all carrying out these, in fact, let's take your example, Udayanga Veeratunga. How was Udayanga Veeratunga captured in Katunayaka at the BIA? How was he captured there? First of all, he had a Interpol warrant against him. I'm not sure whether it was red or blue, but there was an Interpol warrant against him. That was what was told to the general public of this country. And we are now hearing that he got into a flight from wherever he was, traveled all the way, probably connecting somewhere else in the middle, through a connecting flight, arrived at Katunayaka and he's arrested at the BIA. How was he not arrested in somewhere else? Because if there's Interpol warrant, he should have been caught somewhere else.
That's a question that the Interpol should be asked and not the government of Sri Lanka. No?
Why I'm asking you that question is,
because
you're correct. Why I'm asking you that question is, have you all, the party that you represent, given this sense of comfort to these people who are outside? Come, we'll take care of you until the elections are over. And we see Udayanga Veeratunga walking into the country. Is that what's happening?
We saw people who abducted people in Defenders, youth in Defenders, and just went into courts for not even half an hour. So you're talking of a time like that, and you're talking of a person who landed in the island, who was showed in front of courts, who was trialed, and is still locked up.
Yeah.
So it's in the hand of the judiciary,
right,
and not in the hand of the government. Because unlike the last government, this government does not interfere with the judiciary acts.
Right.
Because we heard the tapes. We saw how many magistrates, how many judges have been influenced.
Right.
So in this government's case, we won't interfere, and we have not interfered in any matters.
Right, Chris, I think time is now for the second round for journalists. With your permission, let me ask one more question from Chris. You spoke about the interference of the judiciary. We also remember how Shirani Bandaranaike was removed back during when majority of the people that are in power was in power back then as well. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to ask you a very personal question. If by any chance these people who are currently imprisoned, you say people didn't go into court for at least half an hour during the former government. You brought up an example as well, the Defender case. For example, if these people come out after the election through maybe political intervention or delays in the legal system, if these people come out after the general election and live in this country without any problem, like we see that happened during the former government, will you continue politics? Should you continue politics? Because then your word becomes,
That's true. Of course, I won't retaliate on my word, and most definitely, if so, I don't think I should be. But the thing is this: we spoke about. I heard our speakers here speaking about ethical campaigning and bringing these things forward. See, the person who set the benchmark for ethical campaigning was His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He said, no polythene, no cutouts. Even day before yesterday, he said, so a person like that who has ethics and morals and has brought in a proper system, I don't think he will want to tarnish that image that he has carried just for a purpose of a general election or for a purpose of a provincial election that's coming. He is there for the people and he's been appointed from the people. And the people who are surrounding him are absolute professionals who are, giving him the proper guidance.
Sure.
So,
that you?
I think the reason the public and the media are skeptical about the statements made by politicians is because it's so close to elections. So you wonder, is it really about what you are going to do, or is it just about winning the votes? Hence, much of these questions that are raised.
See, from the end of November until today, that we were told that the election is going to be called, there was nothing about election. We wanted an election, but the opposition refused to give it. Some of them were concerned about their pensions.
But we knew the term of parliament was coming to an end.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
The end is at the end of March. Okay. But still, these are not political promises or these are not things. These are actual facts and figures that, these are what the people wanted.
Agreed.
The government is catering to the people's demands and on a more disciplinary basis and an unbiased basis.
Agreed. Mr. Hettiarachchi, if I may raise the issue of the national lists. You touched on this earlier. I believe that a request had been made as to whether those who lose at elections, will they still enter parliament through the national list? Could you tell us a bit about this, please?
Well, it's really good question. we have been raising this again over the decades. But recently we met the opposition leader and as also the Prime Minister. And again we are going to meet the President also. So this is one of the areas where we are concerned. So our proposal is there will be some losing candidate can come into the system through the national list. I mean, we are not saying that the political, we need to allow political parties to play politics. But the purpose of the national list is completely different. The purpose of the national list is giving opportunity for expert people for policy making and law making at the parliament, and also to give the space for marginalized groups, those who are not underrepresented groups. So those are the area where we have introduced this national list. Even it's 1930s with the governor appointment. From that period up to 1978. So there was a space for under the governor. But now with the national list, we have 29 parliamentarians which we are going to select by the party leaders. So last time we had a bad experience. I think around 11 people out of 29 was the losing people. They selected by one of the political parties. Some other parties also, I think one they have select the losing candidate. So we should allow them, for example, in a case where the important person lost the elections, some reasons, maybe the party leader also, the small margin. So we need to allow political party leadership, whoever, party secretary, to bring them in. But our argument is don't use this national list for all the losing people to bring into the parliament under that provision.
So, Mr. Hettiarachchi, if we take a look at the national list aspect once again, is it monitored in any sort by election monitors when parliamentarians are brought into parliament?
Well, when we make this proposal, we went through the last 5 parliament, but and how they have selected the nationalist MPs. But the serious case was arise only on 2015. Even in the past they have selected, but it was not a big issue. Only the 2015, I think 13 people, those who lost the elections, selected by the political party. So the case was raised up at that time. So our proposal actually, in our proposal we proposed to the Prime Minister opposition leader, and we are going to propose it to the president also. Out of whatever the percentage, whatever the numbers you get through the national list, we are saying, okay, 40% should go as a marginalized group. 40% should represent professionals group, where you wanted to bring the expert in, because some experts are not willing to contest the elections now. So we have to have there should be some space for them bringing their expertise to policy making and also the law making. And 20% or maximum 2 people, you can select those who are lost the election. So this is our proposal. I think I'm happy to say that the Prime Minister is clearly stated that he's not going to take the losing candidate for the coming Parliament.
Mr. Jayakodi, I'm getting a lot of questions on the phone as well. One main point that people are trying to get an answer from you is, now the former Prime Minister, leader of the United National Party, sits in Sirikota. The working committee decides the main things that are happening when it comes to the formation of the alliance as well. Whose property is the United National Party?
Well, ideally it should be the property of the party supporters, those who vote for the party. But unfortunately, the UNP constitution makes it a property of the party leader, irrespective of the individual who holds the position. The constitution, the party constitution, gives unbelievable powers to the party leader.
Why isn't the current leadership allowing the opposition leader or Sajith Premadasa and his alliance to contest and run for the election? What is the main reason that you
I think you need to take the example of a cricket team to understand the current crisis in the UNP. Now, there's a captain and there's a vice captain. So the vice captain is entrusted with the task of leading the team.
Right.
And the vice captain decides who's going to bat first.
But the vice captain in the UNP is Ravi Karunanayake.
No, it says vice captain means deputy leader, number 2, second in command, right? So cricket team, it's vice captain. Vice captain decides who gets to bat first, who goes, who's one down, like that.
Right.
And vice captain decides, on the fielding placements and all that. Vice captain negotiates with the selection committee of selectors on, who gets to the team, who plays the match. Okay, so vice captain is performing the duties of the leader, but there's another, the captain is also, lurking on the side. Right. So I can understand.
But that is the role of the captain, to lead the team.
Lead the team. So in this case, vice captain is leading the team.
Right.
Vice captain is allowed, is empowered by the working committee to lead the team, but he's denied of the captaincy. So I can understand the logic.
Right.
I mean, I can understand. That's my problem.
Right.
Because if the vice captain is good enough to lead the team, if the vice captain is good enough to decide on fielding placements, he might as well lead the party.
I think just a quick question. When you spoke about a captain and a vice captain, a leader and a deputy leader. Now we saw the UMP leadership giving the presidential candidacy, which is the highest leadership. Maybe the cricket board, you take it as consideration, for Sajith Premadasa to run. Soon as he is defeated, the person you are calling the vice captain is Sajith Premadasa, I guess, no? He goes into hibernation, he goes missing. And then all of a sudden he comes out with a big bang and says, okay, I want to be the leader, I want to be the opposition leader, I want to become the leader of the party, and okay, now you're not going to give me that. He's going to go back to the same old system and say, okay, I'm not going to play the vice captain game anymore, I want the captaincy, and then starts negotiating terms again.
Well, Chris, if that is the case, now after the...
So my question would be, Rasika, now after the 2020 election, and defeat is going to happen, because now he's not, from what we heard, he's not going to contest in Hambantota because he was defeated terribly there. So he comes into Colombo, maybe he might have a couple of votes and he might just scrape through this thing, but is he going to go back into hibernation with the whole defeat of the Samika Balawege?
Okay, it's like this, Chris. Now, that's the nature of elections. Now, at the presidential election in 2015, after the defeat of the election, your leader, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, went back to his ancestral home in Madamulana. He made a speech hanging from the window of his house, and then he was brought back by people like Vimal Veeravansha, Udayagam Mampila, and Dinesh Gunawardena. He was going to retire from politics, and then at the subsequent parliamentary election, he contested from Kurunagala, and he had no base whatsoever in that particular district. So that's how this game is played, and you have been in the business long enough to understand that. So that's not the case. Mr. Premadasa, after the election...
What I said was that Mahinda Rajapaksa, His Excellency, went back to Madamulana, and as you said, Janele Ellila, you know, everybody went behind him and asked him to come back into power.
Not everybody. The executive committee of the SLFP went and aligned themselves with Mr. Maitripala Sirisena and made him the party leader. He lost the party.
He lost the party.
He had to form a new party.
See, then after the elections came, and his votes were hijacked, and now it's come to the case where the hijacked people who hijacked us have been hijacked.
So that's your problem. That's not our problem.
But I'm asking you, Rasika, you know, is he going to, as I see as a leadership quality in a leader, when you're defeated, you go back, you stand up in front and say, okay, I accept the defeat and I move forward. But are you going to go back home and say he's feeling, and have other people say he's sick? You know, he'd not come out and even thank the people who voted for him for such a long time. The media was in question as to what's happening with him, and then you say that now he says, I'm ready to take the country. So the person who said that my engine is running at its best and this is my best time, then soon after defeat to say I'm sick and then I'm not available or he's not contactable, he's worshipping somewhere, and then now comes back, and then what's going to happen to the opposition after that if he's defeated?
No, it's like this, it's all, I mean, you have every right to, have all sorts of hallucinations. But Mr. Premadasa, after the election, it was a very tight campaign, 35 days, and he addressed 154 rallies across the country. So he's also a human being, and he has a right to, take a break after defeat of that magnitude and do something, reflect upon what happened during and strategize. So, like, he took a break for a couple of weeks, and after that he came to the campaign office at Vauxhall Street. He was greeted by a large number of party supporters, and then he went to Sirikota. So all these things happened. After that, he had meetings he had his first meeting in Moratuwa, where he thanked party supporters. Then he went to Kolonnawa, and he went to several parts of the country, and he had a number of engagements with those who voted for him. And then he was made the opposition leader. He didn't shy away from that. He took up the post. He led the opposition in parliament.
They demanded. It was a partial demand. You give me this, I take this.
Not really. I think 54.
So
I think
this
the majority of the UNP parliamentary group requested
I'll take this on with Rasika at another time, because we have two professional.
But the point that Chris is trying to make is similar to the questions that I'm receiving as well. So I'm also going to ask you along those same lines. Now, how fair is it for, right, you brought up this explanation with regard to a cricket team, the captain and the vice captain. Yes, people understand that. That portion of the story is understood by everyone who has a common understanding of the political system in this country. Now the problem comes to the working committee of the United National Party. Who are they? And why are they so powerful when it comes to, now, for example, yes, 6.9 million people voted for the current president, and he is in power. He is the president of this country. 1.3 million people, less than that, voted for Sajith Premadasa. Now, there is the public mandate to that extent. Now, then, out of the people who are in the working committee, how many people have contested and won? And how do they decide when so many, over 5 million people have voted for one person to say, you're not the person who the country wants, but it's Ranil Wickremesinghe? What is the logic there?
No, I think the illogical constitution is the problem, because it's not about Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe or anyone else. It's about the party constitution, which gives, as I told you earlier, unbelievable powers to the party leader. So the working committee is appointed at the sole discretion of the party leader, irrespective of the person holding that position. So that's the issue. Even if Mr. Premadasa becomes the UNP leader at any point, at some point, he also can act in the same manner. If someone else becomes the party leader, he also can act in the same manner.
But you all have a constitution. The Samagijana Balavegya has a constitution now.
Samagijana Balavegya has the constitution was approved at the basic basic features, basic clauses of the constitution were discussed at the last working committee meeting.
Yeah.
But I think the party still, you know, it was just launched this morning, and I think going forward, there has to be an inclusive decision-making process. There has to be an inclusive and, you know, diverse group of people making decisions for the party on behalf of those who vote for the party. So all these things should be taken into consideration going forward.
Chris,
sure. Just one point. This is nothing new actually, and this shows us the most of the political parties doesn't have internal democracy. This we are talking about the democracy. We are facing for election for democracy, but unfortunately, political party, the main political parties, doesn't have so-called democracy.
Absolutely, good point there. Same question, the same problem. We are going to talk to you as well. Now you have the Viatmaga people. You have the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna group, the SLFP group who are now part of the Sri Lanka Nidahas Podujana Alliance. So many parties, again, similar problem. UNP has its UNP crisis. If that is called a UNP crisis, then there is the SLFP, SLPP crisis also. I am from your facial expressions, you are trying to ask me what's the problem we have. That seems to be your facial expression. What I am trying to ask you is, how are you going to fit all of these people that you have promised nominations to? We'll probably have to contest elections in somewhere like Maldives also.
I don't see as to what the problem is. Because, you know, you take the Viatmaga, this is a problem that people are trying to create amongst the people. Now, there are people who have been politically active. And see, the SLPP is all about the grassroots level politics.
Right.
That's what we are about. You know, we are highly people oriented. So it's about that. And then also we speak about intellectuals coming in.
Yeah.
Typical examples. I'll give you just two living, walking, talking. So you take the grassroots and the people who have given leadership to grassroots, who also I have worked with, a person like Dhanasiri Amaratunga coming into politics. He's an intellectual, degree holder, this thing. Then on the other side, we have lawyers like Premanath Dolavatta, who's coming in as candidates, or who might come in, who also represent the Viatmaga, this thing. Sure. So there is no clash or whatever, you know, as it's shown on. You know, it's the most suitable people, the most eligible people will be given this thing. But main aspect is, you know, you can be educated in certain manners, but you have to be people-oriented and educated to be people-oriented. You can't have people who will go into parliament and not think about the people and only think about policies. They should be there for policy decisions, like, you know, as advisories, as opposed to coming into active politics.
You're a member, you contested under the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna for the local government election. In terms of your future political aspirations, are you a member of the Viatmaga right now?
No.
You're a member of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna as its political wing. Do you intend on contesting any elections in the future?
I hope I'm running for the provincial council.
In the future?
Yeah.
So, as Mr. Gajanayaga mentioned, that has been denied from the people for a long time. Now, if you were contesting for the parliamentary election this time around, do you think you will get a seat?
That's exactly why I'm not running.
Right.
You know, you can't, there is a process on how you get politically activated. You know, so from being a local government member, for me to try hop into a parliamentary seat is not fair by me even to ask.
So then is it fair by the people who are involved in the Viatmaga movement? Yes, they are intellectuals, there is no question about that. Is it fair for them to ask a seat in the similar logical explanation that you're trying to create?
See, people in the Viatmaga are also people who have been politically activated.
Not all of them.
Few of them.
Right.
Okay. And those are it's not the whole Viatmaga that's going to contest.
Right.
We don't have the Sri Lanka Podujana Viatmaga Sandhane.
Yeah.
Viatmaga is just going to be a part of the SLPP campaigning, you know. And also we have the SLFP coming in now. So it's just a segment, you know, of bringing in educated people, as what Mr. Hettiarach Chandra was saying, you know, bring in more educated people who have the grasp of ground level politics.
Sure. And staying with this same explanation now, how comfortable will the current politicians who will obviously receive a parliamentary seat for nominations rather, there is a set that will already receive. They are active politicians currently, ministers, deputy ministers, state ministers and parliamentarians of the current 8th parliament. Now, they will receive a portion of the seats nominations for the parliamentary election. How comfortable, in your opinion, do you think they will be? Because some people, we saw the famous oxygen forest officer incident recently. A main argument that was brought out was that the person seated in front, the public representative there, was not educated even to the extent that the forest officer was. The education problem among politicians has been a problem that has been discussed.
I may add something. The person who asked whether oxygen kanna, the person who asked that question
is also a politician.
He ran for local government election from a...
Let's not go that far. My question is, how comfortable will be the current politicians be?
See, we saw President Premadasa, who was not a university qualified, who was not even had his A-levels, come in and lead the country. So why this sudden cultural change? I do believe with time that there is a change required and people are asking for things. But the fingers that have been pointed at us is that, we have this. Now, as for the minister you were talking about who was on this there, he was just trying to mitigate an issue that popped up and which blew out of proportion on social media. Yes. Mainly on social media and then later on the media. So, you take those aspects into consideration. There are, we've not gone in and, destroyed archaeological sites or, things like that, which I can refer to on the face of building houses where aspects have come in. But I don't want to refer to those things, but we'll just stick to this where you say that relevant person has the best knowledge in his area.
Right.
If I represent Dehiwala Mount Lavinia, Rasika won't know as much as I know about my Dehiwala Mount Lavinia.
Sure.
So I can't have someone, going in and representing me there and trying to say, okay, I know best about my area. So that's what I say, it's a grassroots level intellectuals, and also the youth factor coming in is a must.
Right.
Now we saw back in the time the UMP harping about female representation.
Right.
But the female representation talk has just been thrown away now by the UMP and also by the UMP, the JVP, all of them got together. And now no one is talking about that. So the grassroots level, the people, intellects are the ones who you need to come up in this, and not just time servers who just, say, okay, now we need to have female representation, now we need to have, youth coming in. That time the politicians should not come in.
Thank you, Mr. Belsa, and thank you, gentlemen, for the third round. We have to go in for a short commercial break. When we come back, the final round of Face the Nation.
Hello?
Yeah, what?
Babe, I'm so sorry.
Whatever it is, I don't want to hear it.
Babe, please. I couldn't answer your call because I was watching Sunrise Melodies. You know how it makes me feel.
Sunrise Melodies. සතියේ සෑම දිනකම උදෑසන 5ට.
අයිබෝවන් අවධානයේ විශේෂ පුවතක් වෙත පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අද මධ්‍යම රාත්‍රියේ සිට ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි විසිරුවා හැර තිබෙනවා. ජනාධිපති ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහතාගේ අත්සනින් යුත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරීමට අදාළ ගැසට් නිවේදනය මීට ටික වේලාවකට පෙර නිකුත් කෙරුණා. එම ගැසට් නිවේදනයට අනුව පාර්ලිමේන්තු මහමැතිවරණය අප්‍රේල් මාස 25 වනදා පැවැත්වීමට නියමිතයි. ඊට අදාළ නාම යෝජනා කැඳවීම ලබන 12 වනදා සිට 19 වනදා මධ්‍යහන 12 දක්වා සිදු කෙරෙනු ඇති. නව පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස්වීමේ දිනේ මැයි මාස 14 වනදා ලෙසද ගැසට් නිවේදනය මගින් ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කර තිබෙනවා. මේ පිළිබඳ අදහස් පළ කරන රාජ්‍ය මාත්‍ය ලක්ෂ්මන් යාපා අබේවර්ධන මහතා.
අද රාත්‍රී අති විශේෂ ගැසට් පත්‍රයක් මගින් වර්තමාන පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරලා තියෙනවා. අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාට තියෙන බලතල අනුව මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරීම සිදු කිරීමේ ගැසට් පත්‍රය නිකුත් කරලා තියෙනවා. එතුමාගේ අවසනින් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව සඳහා නාම යෝජනා බාර ගැනීම. ඊළඟ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණය සඳහා නාම යෝජනා බාර ගැනීම මාර්තු මාසයේ 12 වෙනිදාත් 19 වෙනිදාත් අතර කාල සීමාවක් දීලා තියෙනවා සතියක. ඊට පස්සේ නව පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රැස්වීම මැයි මාසයේ 14 වෙනිදා බවට ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ අනුව මම හිතන්නේ මේ මැතිවරණය ඉතාමත් කෙටි කාලයකින් අවසන් කරන්න තියෙන මැතිවරණයක්. ඒ අනුව මේ කාලය තුල මේ මැතිවරණ කටයුතු වල යෙදෙන උදවිය අවුරුදු කාල සීමාව නිසා කෙටි කාලයක් ඇතුළත මේ මැතිවරණය අවසන් කරන්නට සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා.
எட்டாவது பாராளுமன்றத்தை கலைப்பதற்கான அதிவிசேட வர்த்தமானி அறிவித்தல் சற்று நேரத்துக்கு முன்னர் வெளியாகி இருக்கின்றது. இன்று நள்ளிரவு முதல் அமலுக்கு வரும் வகையில் பாராளுமன்றம் கலைக்கப்படுவதாகவும் மே மாதம் புதிய பாராளுமன்றம் கூட உள்ளதாகவும் அந்த வர்த்தமானி அறிவித்தலில் குறிப்பிடப்பட்டுள்ளது. அரசியலமைப்பில் ஜனாதிபதிக்கு வழங்கப்பட்டுள்ள அதிகாரங்களுக்கு அமைய இந்த வர்த்தமானி அறிவித்தல் வெளியாகியுள்ளது. இதன்படி பொதுத் தேர்தல் எதிர்வரும் 25ஆம் தேதி நடைபெறவுள்ளது. எதிர்வரும் 12ஆம் தேதி முதல் 19ஆம் தேதி நண்பகல் 12 மணி வரை வேட்புமனுக்கள் ஏற்றுக்கொள்ளப்பட இருக்கின்றன. மீண்டும் அந்த விசேட செய்தி. எட்டாவது பாராளுமன்றத்தை கலைப்பதற்கான அதிவிசேட வர்த்தமானி அறிவித்தல் சற்று நேரத்துக்கு முன்னர் வெளியாகி இருக்கின்றது. இந்த செய்தியை ஆங்கில மொழியில் வழங்குகின்றார் ஷாலன்.
Thank you, Giri. Now, the extraordinary Gazette notification dissolving the 8th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka has been issued. According to the extraordinary Gazette notification, the 9th Parliament of Sri Lanka, or the newly elected Parliament, is due to convene on the 14th of May 2020. The general election, or the parliamentary election, will be held on the 25th of April 2020. According to the extraordinary Gazette notification, nominations will be called in from the 12th of March to the 19th of March. Once again, in breaking news, the extraordinary Gazette notification dissolving the 8th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka has been issued. The parliamentary elections will be held on the 25th of April 2020. The new Parliament will convene on the 14th of May 2020.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අද මධ්‍යම රාත්‍රියේ සිට ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි විසිරුවා හැර තිබෙනවා. ජනාධිපති ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහතාගේ අත්සනින් යුත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව විසිරුවා හැරීමට අදාළ ගැසට් නිවේදනය මීට ටික වේලාවකට පෙර නිකුත් කෙරුණා. ඒ අනුව පාර්ලිමේන්තු මහමැතිවරණය අප්‍රේල් මාස 25 වෙනිදා පැවැත්වීමට නියමිතයි. මේ පිළිබඳ වැඩිදුර තොරතුරු දරගන්න රැඳී සිටින්න කියලා ආරාධනා කරන ප්‍රවෘත්ති වාර්තාකරණයේ ප්‍රමුඛයා නිවුස් ෆර්ස්ට් සමගින්.
Welcome to Brainbusters with Slip Season 2.
27 schools across the island, 27 selected students testing their brains to win the ultimate championship, the Brainbusters with Slit Season 2.
Brainbusters with Slit, Saturday at 6:30 p.m.
This is Newsline Live. Watch us for all the action. We ask all the questions that you want answers to.
Welcome back to the show after the breaking news broadcast. We are in discussion with Mr. Chris Balsa, Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi, Mr. Manjula Gajanayak and of course Mr. Rasika Jayakodi regarding the current political developments in the country, and we spoke extensively about the issues pertaining to the election at the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, as well as the United National Party and the Samagi Jana Bala. I also had to write it down still, as the Samagi Jana Balavege. We want to focus the attention on campaign financing and a clean political run in terms of the general election, and that is the reason for having Mr. Rohan Hettiarachchi and Mr. Gajanayak on the show today. So the final round, I want to focus on Mr. Hettiarachchi and Mr. Gajanayak. I'll start with you, Mr. Hettiarachchi. Now, time and time again, and probably in the provincial council elections that we are going to see, and then the 2022 local government elections as well. We are going to speak about campaign financing and clean politicians. But in my understanding, or in terms of the understanding of layman when it comes to this role that you all carry out, isn't it very simple to the extent where the general secretary or the secretary of the party has to decide, you're not suitable because you have allegation in terms of corruption or in terms of thievery or something like that? Isn't it that simple? Isn't it that simple?
No, it is not that simple because they are in the power game. So end of the day, whatever the party, they wanted to become a power. So unfortunately, most of these corrupted politicians which we are talking, they have their voter base in the ground level. Because end of the day, the party leader or a party secretary, they wanted to get these votes into their parties. So that is why, and also mostly those corrupted people do have the financial power. So, I mean, generally we don't have as we discussed in the past, we don't have a campaign finance ceiling. So those who have a financial power, they will get much advantage. So the political party are fully aware that they need to have these people's support for the election campaign. So they have to always balance. I think, as I said earlier also, so we can't change this system overnight. It takes little time. But the political party also need to serious about which type of people they are going to give the nomination as their representative.
Sure.
And also, people of this country should make that such a demand, what kind of parliamentarians which we really require from whatever the political party they are belong. So, it should be balanced. I mean, we as a martial movement, even as a citizens, we are really happy, as you said. If the party decide tomorrow, I mean, they can have their own criteria. They don't want to consider about the martial criteria. They can have their own criteria, and they know what is the reality. They know who are their candidates, so they can have their own criteria and they can decide easily. So as the citizens, we are really happy if the party leaders and the party secretaries, they get together and they decide whom we are going to select for their candidate. But unfortunately, it's not easy like that.
Mr. Etiarachi, now the other matter that is equally spoken of is this two-thirds majority matter. But if you analyze the past, and I think we'll come to you, Chris, also about this. If you analyze the past, two-thirds majority has had its bad run as well. We've seen after the two-thirds majority how things have not worked out so well in terms of the general public of this country. I'm not saying two-thirds is bad, but what is your opinion on whether the people should give a two-thirds majority? Does that create the way for more democracy, or does that?
No, I think it's a little bit political question because it's one group is talking about that. But I think the absolute power never support for the democracy. We have experience in 1978. But if any political party, whoever in the ruling, if they are really genuine enough to bring such a good legislations, they can. Now, for example, in the 19th Amendment, now it's debatable now. Now, so even those who are support the 19th Amendment also questions now. But at that time, it was one of the best amendment to the constitutions during the last Yahapalana government. So, mostly the opposition parliamentarian also supported.
Sure.
So, I think absolute majority, we can't accept whatever the situations. Sometimes we will say, okay, the leader may be good, so he will not misuse the power. But we do not know. At any given time, it can be changed. But I think for the run the country, the political party who are coming to power, they have to have some sort of majority, because otherwise you can't take the decisions also.
Right.
Because they should have a power, whatever they plan, whatever their policy in their manifestos, whatever they promise to the country, so they need to achieve. To achieve that promises, they have to have a majority, but always there should be a check and balances. So opposition also need to be strong positions, and the government, whoever, also need to be quite a strong position.
Thank you, Mr. Hettiarachchi. Let me quickly move on to Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, the CMEV. Mr. Gajanayaka, the 19th constitutional amendment was spoken about, 2/3 majority, everyone is speaking about it now. Again, my question to you is, now, just because the people go and vote and give these people the power to represent us, whether they represent the people or their political gains is a different debate altogether, different topic that we can talk about. But my question to you is, this 2/3 majority and the fact that through an alliance the number of cabinet ministers is increased through the formation of a national government, there are various loopholes in our election law that the governments that come to be use to, create the way they want. And especially matters like people who have been appointed into parliament for like 6-7 days are buying vehicles worth millions of rupees, and this is public money that belongs to the people. Now this, you spoke about this also, the fact that people appoint them and give them 2/3 majority and send them into parliament. The second problem is they misuse the funds and the powers that have been given. And then we say that the laws are outdated and, so we are sort of helpless, so we let them do what they do. Isn't there another way?
Actually, there are many ways. The first thing is actually we have to strengthen our institutions in the country. Normally that we have great aspirations when we are creating independent commissions through 19th Amendment. But when it comes to independent commissions, actually, we can see that that even Sri Lankan Election Commission don't have an election calendar. That provincial council elections or local government elections, actually, if there is ongoing electoral systems, actually amendments, actually they have to, that they can't decide the dates also. Normally we are saying that we are identifying the Indian election commission that source of law in India. Normally, actually, they are creating laws in partnership with Supreme Court. Last time, actually, they given one of the greatest. They introduced the greatest law 2 weeks ago. Supreme Court and Indian Election Commission told that actually when nomination papers are submitted by political parties, they should reveal criminal records of all candidates. It is a proactive action taken by Election Commission and Supreme Court. Can we see like that in this season, actually, in this Sri Lanka, in this country? That actually last time, actually, that we hope that Election Commission will go to the court, but they are struggling with that because there are many questions inside the election, not only Election Commissions, actually all of commissions at the moment. Not only that, when it comes to that general public also, we can't see that they are taking proactive measures to question the system. Sure. That is the main thing. Then let's see that one of civil society member also representing parliament right now. Actually, within 1 or 2 weeks, he got a vehicle actually more than valued maybe 10 million rupees. But the thing is, actually, people are not questioning at all. That's the main problem of the country. I mean that we can see that there are intellectual people around, and also proactive young generation, young groups are coming forward. That means we have to establish a culture questioning the institutions as well as public representatives. But we can't see such a progress in this society. Another thing is that actually the main thing is that that last time we established a separate unit to track expenses of candidates, all 35 candidates in contested in last presidential elections. We saw that we monitored, they have spent more than 4,000 million rupees during the elections. We thought that general public will amazed, will wondered due to these records, due to these findings. But nothing happened. General public like in sound sleep. That how to wake these general public. That's the main problem. We can't do it alone actually. All religious leaders, media, academics and all other sections of groups, actually sections of people should come forward to do that.
Absolutely, Mr. Gajanayaka, a popular Sinhalese newspaper says, Hitiye dina hayai wahane koti hatara marai. So 45 million Sri Lankan rupees for being in Parliament for 6 days. This has, of course, not been independently verified by me. This has been reported in a Sinhalese newspaper. Mr. Jayakodi, this particular incident that we are talking to applies to your party that you represented until today. Yesterday you represented, you were affiliated to the United National Party. Today these guys have formed the Samagi Jana Balawege. So, but still this applies to you as well. This person we are referring to is from your party. Public money, 45 million rupees in 6 days.
Yeah, I think that is, when we talk about the corruption that is embedded in the system. So this incident, this particular incident is a manifestation of the level of corruption or the level of abuse of power that we are familiar with. So as Mr. Gajanayaka very correctly said, it's the duty of us citizens to move forward when issues like this happen. We have masses in this country, but we don't have citizens. So I think the fundamental nature, the fundamental job of everyone, including political parties, media, is to empower the citizen space in Sri Lanka, so that they won't leave room for this kind of manipulations or this kind of acts carried out in the name of democracy.
Rasika, before we move on, I want to recall an incident. I think it was you during one of our Face Nation programs where Rasika challenged you to go on the phone and search for Pohot tour and see the number of that was involved. So, Mr. Gajanayaka, for our viewers who have maybe who missed the show, Rasika challenged Chris to go on the phone on Google and type
Pohottuwa
Mantri in Sinhalese and scroll up on screen. So what happened was there were allegations saying Pohottuwa Mantri Attadanguwata arrested for this, arrested for that. But right after that show, Mr. Baltasar, I got screen shots of messages of people pointing the finger at the United National Party for the Central Expressway scam, for the bond scam, for the Rajagiri Expressway incident, various incidents involving, and what he's referring to, I'm not trying to anyway support Mr. Baltasar's party, but to say that, you can't point the finger at him or you can't point the finger at him because both of your camps are, embroiled in corruption. So I'm going to move on to you as well. But
I have a clear answer to that, Chaturanga. All of us know that the mainstream political parties or the main political people who represented our main political parties have caused a great deal of damage to this country. At the same time, if we are serious about reversing that damage, it's the mainstream political parties that can do that also, because 97% of Sri Lanka's voting population voted for mainstream parties at the last presidential election. So that's where it's also the problem, and that's where the solution also lies. So it's very important for young people, for people who are not tainted with corruption allegations, to initiate an internal struggle within the mainstream political parties, irrespective of party boundaries, to reverse this trend.
Who are these young people, Rasika, that you speak of? Because we know that the current mayor's son, there was a suggestion to bring forward the current mayor of Colombo, Rosi Senanayaka's son. But we also remember, are those the type of clean people that you are talking to? I'm not in any way trying to say that the mayor's son is a bad person or anything of that. But he also has certain allegations, nothing proven, innocent until proven guilty theory, but there are allegations. Do you call those people clean then? Is that your theory?
No, it's not about individuals, Chaturanga. I think, again, the decision lies with the people. When you see the list of names that appear on the ballot paper or the numbers that appear on the ballot paper, vote for the right people. So, for instance, they can make a conscious decision to refrain from voting for people who run massive election campaigns, because in Colombo district, if you're running for a parliament election, the minimum campaign cost, correct me if I'm wrong, is rupees 20 million. That is the minimum cost. The maximum cost can go up to even 200, 300 million, and there are people who spend that amount of money. So you can't possibly earn rupees 200 million by doing a normal job like, you know, like ordinary people. Unless, you know, if you are a top-notch businessman, you can earn that amount of money and you can invest that amount of money in election campaign. But others, they have to get this money from somewhere. So this money is often, you know, very often tainted with, you know, there massive amount of corruption behind these transactions. So again, it's up to the people to refrain from voting for people who run massive campaigns, because there's no need for that, because they spend 100 million or 200 million for election campaigns with the intention of, you know,
earning it back,
earning like 5 times more during the period, you know, during the 5-year period. So these are the decisions people have to make, and I think as, you know, people who are in the political space, people who are in the media space, it's our duty to inform the public and empower the public to make the right decisions.
Mr. Jayakot, you said you wanted to respond to the statement made by...
Yes, I'll very briefly respond, Chaturanga, because the MCC thing, there's no need to run rings around this MCC agreement saying, you know, we won't sign the agreement in the current form or whatever. We saw how when the government withdrew on the Geneva resolution, it was done overnight. They presented a cabinet paper, the cabinet approved that, foreign minister went and made a statement, and immediately withdrew from the UNHRC resolution. So MCC also, it's not as complicated as this UNHRC resolution. It's a grant. Sri Lanka, the government of Sri Lanka applied for this. The project proposal was presented by the government of Sri Lanka. This is a grant, not a loan, no binding conditions or anything. Overnight, the cabinet can decide that. Overnight, not even 24 hours. By presenting a cabinet paper, they can withdraw from the MCC agreement. No need to appoint committees.
There is nothing to withdraw from the MCC agreement because it has not been signed.
The cabinet approved that now before the last presidential election.
So it was decided that it will not be signed.
The former cabinet.
So the UN resolution that we had, the final that was, you know, soon after the previous government comes in, they go, Bangla Samarira goes to the UN and says, yes, we were involved in allegations of...
MCC also, the previous cabinet, it approved the signing of the agreement. So if that is, if they want to...
as opposed to going and making
but Chris,
resolution...
No, Chris, what Rasika is trying to highlight has now, since you are mentioning this, it's a grant. The US is giving it. We have asked for it. The UNP government was continuously criticized for their role in the MCC, and we made a revelation 2 days ago that the UNP government has signed 2 preliminary agreements pertaining to the MCC as well in July and June of 2017 and 2018. But why can't you all say no and get over with it?
So that's what we've said. We've got a panel of expertise also to say that it's not suitable.
So you don't need to do that.
Why is it that this opposition keeps digging in to the same old wound without, you know, then you know, come to think about, I also can keep pointing fingers and asking questions, but that's not what we did. Soon as they came into power in 2005, that's all they did.
Right.
It is Rajapaksa, either Namal, either Basil, either Gota, you know, it is something affiliated, and that's all they did. And that's why, you know, they had to face such a colossal loss. So taking that into consideration, they should be more focused on their party, which symbol they are going to contest on, whether it's going to be the elephant,
those are separate matters. Those are separate matters. We are talking about MCC.
Or no, this is the prevailing situation.
Right,
because MCC is a no, and it has already been said it's a no. But the prevailing situation, just one minute, the prevailing situation is whether it's going to be the elephant, the heart, or the telephone. So come to a decision, because elections have been called and people want it. Because last time what they did was they dragged it until the last moment, and then as soon as the elections they come.
Okay, now in 2005, just 2 weeks before, I'll respond very briefly.
Just 1 minute, say that we did not have enough time. This is what Ranil Wickremesinghe did to us. And you know this, and then they get back together. Now they're going to, they're creating that to accept defeat this time. They're just creating another title and another role.
Okay, I'll respond very briefly. Now, 2 weeks before the presidential election 2015, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa went on record saying he's playing shadow boxing because there's no opponent. because there's no symbol, no candidate. He said, you know, they are doing musical chairs. But when the results came, Mr. Rajapaksa had to go to Madamulana. So don't be too jubilant about the symbols and all that. Yeah, so let's play the game.
In your allotted 3 minutes, I believe, my question to you is, again, we are taking a leaf from what we are discussing. Now, an expert committee is appointed. No, you also spoke about this. Yes, the interim report has been given, and the interim report says, if US is willing to discuss amendments, then go ahead. If not, cancel the agreement. And the government said, okay, the cabinet decision has been taken not to sign the current MCC draft agreement that is available. That is where we stand. Now, I asked you that question earlier with regard to the election, why the government is dragging this till the election. Suppose after the election, it is decided that the MCC is going to be signed. What will you as a person do who is a member of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna? Because I am going to bring you on the show and ask you this question again.
See, the MCC document that is to be signed is just a small piece of paper like this. Right. But the sub-clauses that come into it, neither one of us here would have read. I don't know, Rasika, if you have read the entire MCC agreement, the sub-clauses.
I read the 84 pages that came up before the election.
We came up with the formula that came up with. But each of these sub-clauses has different terms, different conditions, which none of us have come to read. So if that's why there was a panel of experts put there, and that's why from the start the government was skeptical about signing it. And after the panel's advisory came out, they said, no, we are not signing it.
They are not signing what they are saying is
they are not signing. Once it's said that we are not signing it, why do you want to say no? You're not. That's just finger food. You're saying, okay, this is what you're going to do. Why aren't you saying this? Why aren't you going to do this? But then there are bigger problems that they have that they should actually start worrying about at this very moment. And also, since we have officers here, who monitor the elections, now this is just a small thing, because we've been talking about the 97% of Rasika and me and the majority, but the 3%, we saw recently the chairman of the COPE committee, Mr. Handunetti, coming out and saying that, his phone bills are paid by one person, this thing. When his clothes, he's given about 15 shirts a year by another friend. This coming from a politician, that's also, isn't it another way of bribery or another way of accepting a bribe? And him openly accepting it. So that's something that we should also think of when it comes to the 3% angle and how they are operated. Now also Rasika, as the UMP have always been pinpointing questions. Now financial corruption, we take the bond scam, we take all that, we leave that aside. But then there's been different sorts of corruption and there have been people who have been involved. Now we leave Ranjan Ramanayake to a side, that has been the talk. Now you all have merged with the Samagi Peramuna with people like Partli Champika, whose driver came out with a statement and said that he was not the one who drove. Then now the second report, the presidential report, which the Cardinal has said that he is very happy about, that he sees hope, that he sees a positive light, said that with the Presidential Commission report that there is a positivity in this. We have seen people being pointed out, and your party has...
Maithripala Sirisena, who is primarily responsible for security lapses leading to attacks.
Your party has now come up with the signing up, and you all have merged with people like Partli Champika, and are you all going to actually run with them and say, we are clean, we are...
Forget Partli Champika, tell me about Maithripala Sirisena, who is primarily responsible for security lapses. He was the Defence Minister, Cabinet Minister of Defence. He was the president of at the time, and you all formed an alliance with him, and you are talking about our alliance with Partli Champika.
No. Yes, Partli Champika Ranavika, I'm talking about contempt of court.
I'm talking about Easter Sunday attacks.
Yes, so Easter Sunday attacks, the report, the Cardinal himself said that he's not satisfied with the report that you all have submitted.
So who was the president?
So now there is a new presidential commission that's coming out.
So who was the president?
There is a second report that was submitted. There is transparency. This is a question that we started off with. There is transparency. There is no one poking their fingers into the system. There's no third party people brought in just to
I
just
can't
to
understand
focus,
the logic here.
just
You
to focus
form
on
an alliance with the person who was at the helm of the defense establishment when this happened, and now you're talking about the transparency of the investigations. I mean,
you're talking. Come on, Rasika.
I mean, come on.
My question to you is: are you all running with a group of people like that? Are you all because when you all brought Maithripala Sirisena in, he was the best person for you.
When partly jumping Ranawaka's matter is still being heard, no, that case is still being heard.
It's still being
Y'all
heard,
are the one, your leaders are the ones who said both Maithripala Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe are responsible for the East attack. And now suddenly Maithripala Sirisena is the chairman of your alliance.
Isn't it the UMP-led government that blatantly have been lying to the people consecutively?
Who was the president of that UMP-led government? That's what I'm asking. Who was the president?
Who was the prime minister? Who was the prime minister?
So again, with time running out, again, what the general public, gentlemen, seem to be understanding through all of this is very simple. Chris is pointing the finger at Rasika is pointing the finger at Chris and saying, who is the Prime Minister, who is the President? So, it's, yeah.
My question is not who is the Prime Minister. My question is, what's the symbol? Starting tomorrow, we have to start. We know what our symbol is, but you know, how are we going to talk about Rasika? Because even on the show, we can't talk as to what symbol is representing. So, how are we going to go out and say, Rasika, are you from the heart? Are you coming from the heart, or are you coming going with the telephone or the elephant?
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Undecided.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time on the show this evening. Of course, Mr. Chris Baltza, Municipal Councillor, Dehiwala Mount Lamania Municipal Council, from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Thank you, Chris, for being here this evening. Mr. Rohan Etiarachi, Executive Director of PAFL and member of the March 12th movement as well. Thank you, sir, for being here this evening. Mr. Manjula Gajanayaka, of course, National Coordinator for CMEV, Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Rasika Jayakodi, political analyst affiliated to the Samagi Janabala Vega. Thank you, Rasika, for being here with us this evening. John Fernando, thank you very much for being here with us this evening. And of course, Mr. Shehan Ranatunga, after a span of weeks of enjoying his off days and back with us working at News First. Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you for the general public. Thank you to you for watching this evening's Face the Nation. Before we go, of course, we saw what happened right here. Mr. Jayagodi pointing the finger at the SLPP and Chris pointing the finger at the UNP and the Samagi Janabala Vega regarding people who are affiliated to each of these parties. So it is up to the general public. The election will be held on the 25th of April. As Mr. Rohan Etiarachi and Mr. Gajanayaka says, select the right person so that they can represent all of us and all of our interests and the best interests of this nation in the parliament. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Saturanga Kuaraj.